Okay, Josh, floor
Hello,
yours.
hello, friends, and you are our friends. Welcome back to Green for Life on the Green Party of Alaska YouTube channel. I'm the host, Joshua Hadley, Kotzebue City Councilman, Treasurer of the Green Party of Alaska, President of the Kotzebue Chess Club. All these wonderful titles. And I'm joined this week by the Chairman of the Green Party of Alaska, Robert Shields. Hey, Robert, how's it going?
It's going great, Josh. We're having a little wintry storm here to remind us that winter hasn't left yet, but it's a beautiful day. Appreciate your time.
And we this is probably the biggest episode of Green for Life we're gonna have. Just by number of people, we're joined by Brittany Jones, who is running for president, and her vice presidential candidate, who she's going to introduce to us on this program. It's very exciting.
I'm excited to be here today, and I'm glad that I get to introduce my running mate today too.
Um,
Yeah,
uh, so Brittany, you are running for president. Why don't you tell us something about your campaign, what's going on, and then why don't you tell us who your running mate is now?
Well, my campaign is at this point completely grassroots. All the donations come from our supporters and our followers. We are actually out here working with the people. I've been to rallies and protests, and standing side by side with the people, because that's what the president is supposed to do: is work for the people, not for Congress, not for corporations, not for the Supreme Court, but for the people. And we're focusing on enforcing, expanding treaties, and also bringing accountability for the treaty violations that have happened already, and for the complete and clear separation of church and state, and to make our institutions actually safe and for the people, like the prison system, school system, hospitals, all of it, the racism, bigotry, and sexism out of there. And we can do that through the cabinet of the executive branch. And I just asked Jackie Carpio to be my running mate a little over a week ago, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hello, I am Jackie. I am Jacqueline Carpio, nickname Jackie. Sometimes I go by Genuine Jackie with my comedian friends. But yeah, in car sales and in politics, I am Jackie, and I am looking forward to being a part of all the plans that Brittany Jones has for, all of America, especially the First Nations people. I'm really excited about that and bringing this country back to, gosh, I want to use the word healing. I want to like healing the wounds that past leaders have done. I commemorate Brittany Jones for starting this whole thing. So I'm happy to be here.
and you're celebrating the birth of a new nation, new positivity. That's the happy birthday thing. That's what's going on there. So Brittany, I appreciate you. You've been on our debate stage a couple times here. You've done really well. The people are responding to your message. And so we look forward to having you on our debate stage this Wednesday when you'll be facing off against the artist Afroman, and be talking about some very serious issues, including federal legalization of cannabis and how that can impact the future of our nation. But since we're going to do that, I thought this would be a great opportunity to give people a chance to get to know you a little bit better. So you mentioned that you have you served in the military. So can you tell us a little bit about what you did in the military and how long you served, and that chapter of your life?
So I joined the military on my 18th birthday. Went through MEPS, did the duck walk in my underwear, like so the doctors could examine the bodies and make sure we're not broken before we join. Even though they break us while we're in. And I served for 8 years. The first 4 years were fantastic. I never deployed. I'm human resources. I worked. My favorite unit was in Arlington Heights, Illinois, and I was the lowest ranking person in the building. I think it was a 1 or 2 star general that was the commander of the entire unit. And I had to go in a meeting with them one time, and she got mad at my supervisor for sending a specialist up there to a meeting with generals and higher ranking people. But my supervisor knew I could do my job. The last 4 years is when the issues really started making themselves apparent. My son's father how censored do we have to be for this? Is it like TikTok? Do I have to say unalived himself, or like?
You just don't have to drop any F-bombs so we can be community
Okay.
standards, but
Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
So I was 4 years into my contract, and my son's father had a schizophrenic episode 2 weeks before his fourth deployment, and he ended up killing himself and one other person. And so I ended up moving back to Oregon, and I took my 2 years of inactive ready reserve. So I didn't have to go drill. I could just focus on taking care of my son during that time. And it became glaringly apparent once my 2 years were up, when they attempted to put me in another unit, and a female sergeant refused to sign the paperwork to have me join because she didn't want an attractive female around her men. And so I got put into a unit up in Portland that I couldn't make it to. I had no car, nobody was driving up there. I had no money for the train or the bus. And they don't pay you ahead of time for travel. You get reimbursed. And so I had to make up drills with her, the same sergeant that refused to sign my paperwork. And she almost got me kicked out with a dishonorable discharge because she was lying to my commander, my unit, and saying that I was not even attempting to go in for drills. So I had to submit all my emails, all my phone records showing that I was attempting to contact her and do all this stuff. And instead of kicking me out, they just put me back into the IRR, which violated my service contract. And I lost my school funding. I did not get the active duty days needed to be able to use the VA loan. And I didn't get the rest of my enlistment bonus. So, it made some problems in the military glaringly obvious, not only trying to deploy someone who had schizophrenia and PTSD, but the sexism, the racism, all of that going on in the military. And there needs to be somebody in charge of the military that has that experience. And while I never deployed, I will never claim to have deployed, I still have the experience being in the military and dealing with a toxic environment, especially as a female in the military. And it's not easy, I'll tell you that. And I decided not to re-enlist after that. But I still loved the first 4 years I was in.
Brittany, talking about the military, I'm a new city councilman. I went to Anchorage for the Alaska Municipal League training for newly elected officials, and I was very surprised the last day there. We all got together and we talked about the priorities for AML. What is it going to be? And like I said, I was very surprised by all these politicians talking about one of the biggest issues in the state of Alaska being homelessness. And for some reason, there seems to be a lot of homeless veterans. Can you tell us what's going on there and when you're elected, how you plan to help them out?
So I was homeless, actually more than once. And I was unable to get help from the VA because I never deployed to a combat zone. And not just the VA, but any other nonprofit. Hold on. Any other nonprofit organization that specifically helps veterans, they all had that same qualification, that you had to have deployed at least one day into a combat zone to be able to get help. Didn't matter if you were honorably discharged, didn't matter if you served your contract. If you did not deploy, you could not get help. And a lot of veterans face that, and that needs to change. I actually have a homelessness program that would help everybody after, working on getting the homelessness situation under control. And it's actually getting you into houses that you will get to own. And it's not just a handout. It's based off your actual income, your actual expenses with today's inflation rates. And if you need disability, if you need help getting disability, if you need help getting veteran services, we'd have a team to help the people do that, help getting a job. You'd have access to addiction services, for counseling, for alcoholics, for drug addicts, if they needed help. And they'd actually be able to own a home. And a lot of times, like when I was in the streets, they turn to drugs and alcohol because of the hopelessness of the situation. And a lot of them, if they just get one tiny spark of hope that change can happen, they rise to the challenge, and they work their butts off to get themselves off the street. And the nicest people I met were in the homeless community. There was not the judgment that you get from people in the fancy houses or even in any house. And I faced more cruelty and harm from the housed community than I ever did from the homeless community. And once the homelessness issue is addressed, my homelessness plan can actually be expanded to anyone. And it's not the government creating a monopoly on the housing. It's people will get to own their homes. And it will work on fixing up the dilapidated homes, the ones that are falling apart, becoming drug dens, and bringing the market value down for housings in other neighborhoods. I mean, for housings in the neighborhoods, making it safer so that, you know, your children aren't walking and finding needles in these yards. And it's just a blanket thing, and each house will fund the next house, and it will create jobs in the service industries like construction, plumbing, electrical, because all these houses will need to be refurbished. So it's going to create jobs, give people access to owning a home, give them hope for getting off the street, and then open up to help anybody. And we can do that for veterans or anyone else. And I actually plan on closing foreign military bases that we no longer need and working with Congress to reallocate that funding to improving base housing, support services for active members, and for veteran services as well, to make sure that we take care of our troops.
So you also mentioned that you are an entrepreneur, you've run some businesses. Can you tell us a little bit about your business experience in that chapter of your life?
What actually got me to be a business owner was my son. He started having hallucinations when he was 5 years old, and I had to pretty much be on call for his schools because he was a flight risk, or he would just not listen and not cooperate. So I had to be on call all the time. It was very hard to keep a regular 9-to-5 job. And so I learned how to own a business. And the first business I ever had was for Marcus and Micah. And it had, I was making custom dresses, tutus, selling fabric, learned how to buy fabric and other things wholesale. I learned about filing a business, how to get an EIN number. And I was doing really well, but I lost my passion for sewing. And I love sewing. I love being creative. So I decided to move away from that business and move into, I called it United Threads. It was a nonprofit thrift shop that would be the base of my housing work that I was doing, because this happened while I was homeless. And like, we don't have help, we don't have support. And everything that was donated was sold for between $1 to $5. And this made it possible. It wasn't open long because COVID hit, unfortunately. And I still plan on reopening it one day. But everything that was donated was sold at an affordable price, because if Dollar Tree can sell things for $1 and still make a profit, then I could definitely sell things for $1 that are being donated and help people out that needed help. I never got to help anybody, but it was another learning curve for running a nonprofit during a pandemic. And then after that, I learned how to open a school, and I had my own private metaphysical college for the pagan community. And I had another storefront. It was a pagan storefront with candles, you know, all the things you need as a pagan: crystals, candles, spell books, tarot cards. And I created a safe meeting space. Every Friday we would have beer and tarot, and everybody was invited to come and join us in a safe space to practice and learn more about their craft. And I set that aside and my school aside to campaign specifically. So that's why I set that one aside, and I cannot wait to get back to it. I loved the teachers that I had. I loved the students. I loved how fast it was growing. But if somebody doesn't get into office that actually recognizes that our freedoms are in trouble, then my school could end up not being a possibility in a few years.
Well, Brittany, I'm just curious now. You said you're doing these pagan things. I'm not really, I haven't studied religion too much, but I'm just curious. So when you say you're doing you're pagan or you're doing this pagan things, my understanding was it was just a sort of catch-all term for non-Christian, but I must be wrong. Can you explain that to us?
Did you say for non-Christians?
Well, I thought pagan just meant like I thought it was just sort of a catch-all term, like when Rome sort of like people outside their borders. Oh, they're just barbarians. I thought like for Christians, anyone who wasn't Christian, they just use the term pagan. I must be mistaken.
No, that's true. That's the dictionary term is a pagan is anyone who's not part of the four main world religions. But it's kind of taken on its own life within the witchcraft community, the Viking community, so pagan is a broad term. We had Christian witches there. We had witches. We had different people, just people who didn't follow a religion, who were just spiritual and wanted to learn more about the metaphysical, the occult, the energy work, and that type of stuff. So it was open to anybody, but it was a pagan school that did not teach. It didn't even teach a religion. There was classes like on following Hecate and stuff, but it wasn't a specific school for a specific religion. It was open to any, but it wasn't a Christian or Catholic school.
So that brings us into a real controversial question here, is that there are many people in this country that believe, and we've had, I believe Roland Roberts represented this perspective pretty clearly, that he believed that the challenge with America, and many people believe, is that we had the separation of church and state, and that we're not the Christian nation we used to be. I'm not familiar with us ever being a Christian nation, and I'm just wondering how how, as the first pagan president of the United States, would you respect and diversify all of the varieties of spiritual and religious views that share this great nation?
That is where the focus on separation of church and state comes from. It is not to stop people from practicing their religion, but what we're seeing today, like with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there was a huge push by Christian conservative groups in the lobbying arena, and they can't endorse or support a candidate or party, or they violate the tax laws of being a nonprofit, but they can lobby for legislation. There's a loophole there. So while they cannot force us to follow their religion ideologically, yeah, they can force us to physically follow what they expect in their religion. And any religion has the capacity to do that. Any religion can be just as bad, like Wiccans might get mad at me, but some Wiccans are just as bad as the Christians that try to force the Bible down your throat. They try to force the threefold law down your throat. Not everyone follows the same practices. And so we need to make sure that every religion is not, if you're a nonprofit or whatever, you cannot lobby for legislation to force other people to follow your ideology. And we can do that because there's 2 clauses in the Constitution that specifically mention keeping them separate. It's not the specific word separation of church and state. People try to throw that out there, but it's 2 little paragraphs that definitely talk about that issue. And I could use that and do an executive order to expand and clarify what those mean, because I can't create new legislation with an executive order, but I can use it to stop any religious organization from lobbying for legislation so that we can actually have true religious freedom.
And we've talked about some issues concerning government and religion on this show before. Back when John Olson was co-hosting with me, we talked about a story where a church had stayed open that housed homeless people, and the city government decided to go after them because that is a zoning violation. And there was another recent story that I saw where another city government had gone over a church in California for, well, again, zoning violations. The people who give people food and water, what they did was they offload a truck with a trailer when it was a zoning violation for the area it was in. The Green Party of Alaska is a very unique political party that we decided to adopt regenerative economics to push that idea. And a lot of it goes into the idea that if we have a better world, we wouldn't need as much government getting in between things, especially churches like this. So when I think about the separation of government and religion, I think it sort of goes both ways. Like religion, when someone can be religious and do a great job in government, but unfortunately, sometimes people let that get in the way of their job, and government should allow religion to help people in the way that it simply just cannot. I mean, is that how you feel, Brittany?
I definitely hear what you're saying, and I do think that there needs to be less governmental interference and things like that as well. If a church wants to feed and house the homeless, they should be able to. Any group, actually, any nonprofit, any organization that's going out there to hand out water or food. We're seeing it along the border too, where their water is being destroyed when they're trying to help the immigrants coming over. And we need to focus more on supporting those humanitarian efforts and not destroying them, because each life is important. And it's just about control. And the government wants their control. They want their money. And so we need to make sure that those types of restrictions are lessened to give these organizations more freedom to help people.
So, Jackie, congratulations are in order. I appreciate you being here. So vice presidents don't usually get a lot of time on debate stages and forums and stuff like that. So could you tell us a little bit about what your priorities or what your first 100 days in office as the vice president might look like?
If I'm being completely honest, I'm still processing and learning and basically just following Brittany Jones's footsteps and just wanting to focus on doing whatever I can to help make whatever plans she has a reality. But I'm working on that. I'm getting there. But I haven't gone there yet. I haven't thought of that.
Well, I understand that you were selected just a couple of days ago, so I don't expect that you're going to have your platform your platforms down and stuff. But these are the kind of things that people want to know, and we do appreciate you being here today. So, Josh.
Well, Jackie, I just wanted to comment. I hope you don't plan on being like FDR's first vice president. I believe his nickname was Cactus Jack, who was mostly not doing like the small amount of responsibility that position had, and doing whatever else you felt like. It is possible. As far as I know, the main responsibility of the vice president is to break votes in in the Senate, rather, not just not Congress as a whole, but the Senate. If there's a 50-50 split or any kind of split like that, the vice president would break it. But we've seen actually in the last few decades more and more active vice presidents seem like to start like with Cheney and Biden, and maybe I missed with Pence so much, but do you plan to be very active in the administration or with the public, or do you see yourself as more a backstage or backroom kind of person, perhaps?
No, I can see me being very active with the public. I am an extrovert, so I like the public. I mean, I can talk a lot of shit about people, but I love the public. But yeah, I see me more doing I want to say like public relations, making deals happen. Just give me the objective and I will get a team together and solve it.
And so let's go to well, we've asked this during the debates, but Brittany, you only got 1 minute to answer the question. We said it then; it wasn't very much time, but mentioning FDR again, it's become a famous thing where, oh, what were they doing the first 100 days? And I was wondering, what exactly is your plan for your first 100 days once you're in office? I see on your website that you have some executive orders you'd like to create.
Yes, and for anyone that wants to read throughout my entire 100-day plan, it is up on my website, as well as a more in-depth land back or true sovereignty plan. It's not a policy because it's not about creating new legislation, but it is a plan it's from what we've been talking about with the communities for the last year, and I plan to expand it even more as I talk to different nations about what each nation needs. But within the first 100 days, I will be creating an executive order for the separation of church and state. I will be creating an executive order for access to reproductive health care. And I'll be creating an executive order to protect transgender people and their access to gender affirming care as well. Because self-expression is under freedom of speech and gender expression is self-expression. So I could easily clarify the legislation to allow people to have access to that health care. And my phone's down here now because I overheated, so I have to have it in front of the AC for a second, just so you guys know. And then within the first week, within the first couple of days of being in office, once all the formalities are done, I plan to convene, call Senate to session and have the leaders of First Nations meet and to start negotiations for expanding treaties, to start investigating treaty violations, and to start pressing charges against any elected official who was complicit in those treaty violations for crimes against humanity, being complicit in genocide. That is, and then we will also start the homelessness program. We'll get a team together to start looking into what exactly is needed to get the homelessness program off the ground. Start working with Congress for funding with that. If Congress refuses funding, I'll just use my own salary to get it done. So we'll tackle the treaty violations, separation of church and state, the housing program, almost immediately, just getting to work for the American people. I will also immediately start my process to close down foreign military bases that we don't need and bringing our troops home, consolidating our forces and our equipment, and saving money, because in 2022, we spent over $50 billion on overseas bases. In 2023, I have not looked up the number yet for how much we spent on foreign bases. And then we also need to look at how much money we're sending to other nations for their military endeavors. We don't need to have our troops over there helping foreign corporations get rich. We don't need to help colonizer governments in other places. Like, my support for Israel as president would be removed. Military, economical, financial, all of that support would be removed. And we'd be reassessing the allies that we have. Because one thing I've noticed is people don't get all the information clearly. And places like North Korea and Russia supported Palestine. And that kind of makes you sit back and think that they're standing against genocide. With all the hateful things you hear about those governments, they are standing against genocide. But our government is not. Our government is supporting it. So allies will be reevaluated, and the military support will be reallocated and consolidated, and we'll start taking care of our own people first.
So, Jackie, I got another question for you here. Well, a lot of young people are very apathetic, not only about this upcoming election, but also about politics in general. What would your message be to them about how to get them involved, and why this year, and why they should be involved in politics, not just during an election year, but ongoing?
Say that question again, I'm sorry. How to get the young people involved?
What would be your message to young people about why they should be involved in politics, and why they should support the campaign?
Oh gosh. Well, being new to, I want to say, motherhood myself, I recently kind of adopted my friend's kid a year ago. And to be honest, she's actually here right now kicking her legs for whatever reason. But no, my message would be the reason to support our campaign is because I'm 36 years old. I've lived and I've seen and what the two-party system has done to this society, this country. And so many people keep saying that they want change. Well, I'm a huge believer. You have to change the way you vote if you want change, because This whole back and forth thing is not doing it, and it's never going to do it for the people. So it's good to get involved with independent candidates.
Well, Jackie, to go more in depth into this, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also just announced his vice presidential candidate, and it was someone very close to your age as well. And talking to the people on the streets, people around my age, I'm 32. There's some excitement over the age of the candidates. Some of the biggest criticisms of Trump and Biden is they're just too old, and there's excitement for people closer to our age.
It was nice. It was nice to see. I was like, oh, competition too.
So I guess my question, Jackie, is now that you're the vice presidential candidate, where's your first campaign stop on the campaign trail going to be?
And I want to say Arizona. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I don't like which one of them, like what state am I looking forward to going?
Well, I'm just curious, as a candidate, what's your first campaign event going to be?
I mean, the 420 idea sounds nice because I'm a huge advocate for cannabis. It's a great stress reliever. Gosh, I really need to think about these things. I'm really excited to start in my hometown, my home state, Arizona.
And we are planning it for Arizona. Actually, we're going to be having a raffle where if you live in Tucson or Phoenix in the area, you can, if you subscribe to our website for $1 a month and you're in this area, you get entered into a raffle to spend an entire day, or not an entire day, a day. We're going to keep it open-ended with myself and Jackie and Randy. We're going to go kayaking and just you get to learn more about us and spend more one-on-one time with us. And then we're going to be planning a casual Q&A so that more people can be involved, and that's going to be happening in Arizona.
So, Brittany, we know our education system is not the best in the world. So what would you do about that? How would you as president see that our future generations get the education they need to be productive citizens?
One thing we are seeing within our education system is creative arts are being taken away. Recess time is being reduced. Lunchtime is being reduced. It's all about creating a workforce. It's either a school to prison pipeline or school to being a drone for a rich billionaire CEO. Well, we need to bring those creative classes back, and we need to bring trade trainings back. Trade classes back, not trade trainings. I guess it's the same thing. And there's a couple of grants that I want to implement once I am president of the United States. Manifestation is the creativity and education grant, where if a school shows that they have arts, humanities, like more wood shop, trade classes, if they show that they have a diverse education, they can get a grant to help fund their school further to be sure that they get to keep those educational programs. And this would create a more diverse learning environment. And speaking about diversity, there's also going to be a diversity in education grant. A lot of schools won't hire a gay teacher. They won't hire a BIPOC teacher. They won't hire a Mexican teacher, especially in the smaller towns. I dealt with some racism because my son is Afro-Indigenous. He's darker skinned, and he was treated terribly in the school system. And there wasn't a lot of representation. He didn't really see a lot of people that looked like him. So encouraging schools to have a diverse staff so that people see people that are like them. Because I knew I liked girls when I was in grade school, and I wasn't exposed to any LGBTQIA2S plus community at that time. So it's not about indoctrination. It's just about allowing people to be around people who are like them. And that diversity helps bring comfort and availability accessibility within the school system. So if a school shows they have a diverse staff, they'd also get a grant to help keep the staffing needs, to make sure that students feel welcome and seen and represented within the school system. And it also shows them that, hey, I can be a teacher too. I can do this too. It's safe for me here because these people work here too. And so there'd be 2 grants that are established for that. And then we'd also have to work through making sure that funding for schools is evenly distributed. Rich neighborhoods should not just have the better schools. Schools should be equal across the country, no matter the economic location of the schools. Inner city schools have a severe lack of funding, dilapidated buildings, low success rate for students because they don't have the staffing needs, they don't have the facility needs to help these kids stay in school. And so making sure that the children are fed, making sure buildings are up to and the security of the buildings too, with the school shootings that we have happening, and making sure that that funding is spread out to all the public schools and not picking favorites, to make sure that the wealthier kids get the better education. All kids deserve a good education.
Guys, I gotta apologize again. I try not to be too Alaska centric, but it's in the news. It's very frustrating how we've seen with the state budget, the Governor Mike Dunleavy vetoed additional funding, so it's been flat for the past several years. I believe 5. And I've been reading what the schools here have been saying. They're gonna cut basketball programs, sports programs. It's so terrible here that we're so tight on cash. There are flights to these smaller villages from Kotzebue here, but to save money, these kids and their coaches, instead of taking a plane to these towns, are instead taking well, you can drive to any of these villages in an hour, depending on how fast you can go on a snow machine. But if I had a little kid with me, I would be like, going full throttle to get to Kobuk or something. But yeah, we're so tight on cash, we're taking snow machines instead of planes to the villages. And now, spending's the same as we've experienced with inflation. That if you're just spending the same amount of money, you're actually spending less. But what's very frustrating to me, Brittany, and you could probably speak about this, is the government couldn't override the governor's veto, so spending's going to remain the same. But right now, there's legislation to ban trans people from sports. So great, they're banned from sports that we might not even have anymore. It seems like they can go after these easy wins, but if for more difficult things like trying to spend more money for stuff, like they could easily just we're just not going to do it. I mean, can you speak to what's going on here, Brittany?
So what we're seeing is the corporate sellouts within our elected officials. We need the people. This is one reason why, that question earlier when you asked Jackie, how would she get the young people involved or motivated for the campaign? It's your voice counts, your vote counts, and getting these elected officials that actually want the schools to succeed, that would like to have better funding for schooling, get them into office, vote for them. Don't let the rhetoric of they have to be one of the 2 parties scare you out of voting for who you want to vote for, because it's your vote is how we shape the government of this country. And if you don't vote, or if you vote for the lesser of 2 evils, then I hate to say it, but you're complicit in everything that's happening, because being silent is being complicit. So we need your vote. We need your voice. And unfortunately, the president can't control the state level funding. The president doesn't even have control over the federal funding. Congress selects that. But once the budget is set for the year, then the president can work within that budget with the cabinet members to make sure the schools get funding. And I think sports programs are also very important. Creative minds, athletic minds, moving bodies for health wise. We need that funding there, and we need the governors to be from the people. We need people that are younger. We need people that have lived the poverty lifestyle. We need poverty life. We need people who have experienced the hardships that we go through. because if you don't experience that, then you're disconnected from what it's actually like. You don't know what it's like, and those people can't make decisions for us. They don't understand it to make those decisions. So making sure that funding is there is critically important.
So, Brittany, you mentioned that one of your campaign, one of your priorities was to close down foreign military bases and stuff. And obviously, there's a lot of questionable reasons about why and how we are active in foreign countries. But the fact is that today we are there. So how would you deal with the potential fallout of withdrawing, closing military bases? And I'll use Haiti as an example. You know, the government fell down there, and that place is really suffering. So as president, your focus may be on the United States, but how would you address our current obligations and responsibility to our global neighbors?
I don't know if this is allowed on TikTok. You can edit it out, or if you need to. But on my lives on YouTube, on my lives on TikTok, I say that we're not Captain Save-A-Ho. We should not be sending our people over to die for other people's conflicts. And our government actually funds both sides of these conflicts. They keep the conflict going so that we can take from those countries, take their resources for pennies on the dollar. Because when conflict is profitable to corporations. So our government is actually funding these conflicts out there. They're contributing to these conflicts. And what we need to do is, I would remove funding and I would remove our troops, but we would choose a side pretty much. We would stop funding both sides. We would evaluate who is purchasing these weapons from us and see who is the colonizer, who's the suppressor, and who are the people of that country. And we would support the people of that country, because we will not support genocide under my campaign. We will not support suppressive governments under my campaign, under my presidency. We will support the people globally.
So one of the top priorities for the Green Party of Alaska, and I have it right here. We are eager to endorse any candidate from any party who can raise themselves above this bar to publicly acknowledge the American Holocaust and work to enact restitution strategies. So, I mean, we know what they're talking about. When the United States decided to go with Manifest Destiny, take all this land, these resources. And it seems like your campaign is really going against genocide, like the American Holocaust, what's going on in the Middle East right now. Is there any? Well, you did talk about treaties. Is there any more plans on righting the wrong of what happened in the American Holocaust?
Actually, yes. Part of the First Nations are supposed to be truly free and sovereign. They're not. Reservations is trust land. It still belongs to the American government. They have to ask permission to improve their infrastructure, build schools, build roads, build manufacturing facilities. The American government still has its boot on the First Nations neck, and that needs to be removed. And as president, I can actually remove those restrictions and allow for infrastructure growth by reservations for the people, for the First Nations, without corporations being able to come in there like we're seeing right now with the refineries and the mines for clean energy. They are wanting to make mines, but it's right near or on reservations and treaty territory. And these mines pollute the environment, they pollute the water, they cause cancer, and the refineries are no better. So it's violating treaties again. And as president, I can actually enforce those treaties and say, no, you can't build here. Sue me in the Supreme Court. This is within my power of president. You are not building here. You are not polluting this water. You are not polluting this environment. You are not creating these camps that are going to put our people at risk. No, I am standing by the treaties. I am standing by First Nations. And we need a president that will actually do that.
Okay, so kind of as my last wrap-up question, so we know money in politics is a big thing. I think, what was it? Biden raised $26 million in one night. I mean, something that could really make some benefits in people's lives. And so my final question to you, Brittany, is what changes would you make, or do you think we should make any changes to how we choose elected officials in this country going forward?
I think we need to move away from the two-party system. First off, Jackie actually started boycott the two-party system, and Americans are very good at boycotting things. So why don't we boycott the two-party system? State level, local level, federal level. Get the third parties out there. If we're going to have parties, they need to have an equal playing field. Remove the different qualifications and requirements for ballot access. It shouldn't be like that. The Constitution doesn't say that each parties have different requirements. For example, in Arizona, for ballot access for senator, you need 3% of the signatures of unaffiliated voters. But if you're a Democrat or Republican, you need like 1.4%. So there's already a discrepancy there. They make independents and third parties work so much harder for ballot access that it's not actually free and equal. And that needs to change. And I am looking into ways to how I could change that as president. Right now, I'm working on filing a federal case against all 50 states to make sure that ballot access is made equal for everyone, that the requirements are the same and if they're going to charge a filing fee, it has to be nominal. Right now, Oklahoma wants $35,000 for ballot access. That's a money grab. That's keeping the wealthy people in power. And we need people like us to be able to get in there without having to fight that system. And that's why I'm going to bring it up again. Fundraising is so important for the campaign. And I know we're all struggling out here. That's why I made a $1 a month subscription that you can do on my website. And it's actually, if you go to my TikTok or my Facebook and you go to my link tree, it's the second or third link down. And it makes it really easy. It's less than $1 divided by 30 or 31 days. It's pennies. So that's how we could get on the ballots so easily if all of our supporters just went and subscribed for $1 a month. I'm not interested in raising millions for advertising. I'm not interested in raising millions to bribe people to endorse my campaign. I'm interested on ballot access, getting our name on there, and setting up events so people can see us and meet us and get to know us and our policies.
Well, this is typically when we have our call to action segment on the program. But Brittany, can you, before you tell us like where people can find you, where they can donate, where they can volunteer for your campaign, can you comment really quick on the potential banning of TikTok in the United States? How do you feel about that? What should be done?
This is the third or fourth time they've tried to ban TikTok in the United States. If it is banned before I'm president, I will make sure to bring it back because it is freedom of speech. It's the free market. We don't actually have the government should not be trying to control that. And I believe they're doing it to try to control our voices because TikTok creates a medium where we can reach each other without the filtration and stuff that you see on Instagram and Facebook that are ran by American corporations. TikTok is a way for us to connect. Small businesses are going to be affected if TikTok is taken away. My campaign, the biggest platform is TikTok. It's making third-party and independent candidates an actual threat to the two-party system because we have the ability to reach millions. When I go live on TikTok, I've had over 14,000 people come through in 2 hours. It's a very important platform for our voices to be heard. And I would definitely work to protect that as president of the United States.
Well,
And
Brittany, thank you. Go ahead,
thank
Josh.
you. Well, I was just gonna ask the same thing that Robert was gonna ask. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Jackie. Like I was asking, if people are fired up and they say, I need to find out about Brittany Jones, I need to donate, volunteer, where can they do that?
My website is simple. It's jonesforpresident2024.com. I have my platforms up there. I have a blog up there. I have the shop up there where you can buy merchandise, donate to the campaign. You can even register to vote through my website because we want to make it as easy as possible for people to be able to vote and have their voices heard. I have an About Me section so you can learn more about me, and we'll be adding one for Jackie as well. She's still very new to my campaign. She was a presidential candidate early last year, by the way. But we're going to be working on the platform that we're going to be building together now that she's part of the team, and that will be added to the website as well. And all my social medias are linked in my link tree. So if you go to my TikTok, Jones for President 2024, or my Facebook, Jones for President 2024, I've kept it very simple across the board. You can go to my link tree and actually find my YouTube, my Twitch, my Discord, my Instagram, my Twitter. All of them are linked. So you just click on the links and go follow me.
Okay. And then with Trump selling Bibles, are you selling personalized copies of the Golden Bough, or something similar to that?
I am not actually. What I am doing is using my TikTok platform to educate people on politics. And we're going to be having a TikTok-a-thon where I'm going to be trying to get TikTok subscribers so that I can focus on campaigning full time and not having to go out door dashing so many hours every day to be able to survive. I really need to be able to campaign full time, especially going against corporations. And so what I'm selling is education. I'm actually teaching the people how the Electoral College works, what each branch of office, what each branch of our government actually does, and how an independent candidate can win an election.
Well, Donald Trump had that book, This Boat's My Boat or something. You could write a little simple child's book about how easy it would be to stings and then to sell that. Or I don't know, the Golden Bough was my first spell book, and I think the world would be a better place if more people read it and understood the simplicities of living with the world. But we're getting off topic, and I appreciate you guys giving us your time today. I appreciate you guys joining us on YouTube and on our Facebook channel. You can check out more information about the Alaska Green Party at alaskagreens.org. And this has been an election special for Green for Life. So we'll see you next week. And thank you for joining us in, and stay beautiful, everybody. So if you guys want to hang on just for a second.